Download and watch it live on SPOTV NOW app.
What a shot that is. What a sight it is. It is a pleasure to be once again in wonderful Lombok, in beautiful Indonesia. We'll feature both factory Ducatis, which means, of course, newly crowned world champion Marc Marquez in Q1 for the first time in almost 18. The Valencia Grand Prix in 2023 to close out that campaign was the last time we saw two factory Ducatis. It was back in 2023. All three Ducati GP25s coming up in this 15-minute opening Q1
if they turn that 9 upside down, then they can show support for both of the factory Ducati riders who lead the field out for qualifying to joining them in this Q1 session. Then we have two KTMs, of course, going through in this session as well. We also have a solitary Honda, or a couple of Hondas, should I say, of Zarco and Chantra for the LCR squad, and just one Yamaha going through this session. That is Jack Miller, and he's shown pace to suggest that he can potentially disrupt the Ducatis in this Q1 session if he can keep it on two wheels.
Sixth race in a row now that Miller has found himself in our opening qualifying session. You have to say, if you look at the form book, almost a full 2 years since they saw both red bikes featuring in the Q1 session. Gigi Delinia looking on, still patched up after some celebrations at Marc Marquez's 7th World Championship went wrong here on Lombok a few days ago. Jumping into the shallow end of the pool and getting a bit of a blow on the mush, did Gigi.
Marc Marquez is catching Bagnaia on this lap, as I thought he might do with the reference up ahead of him. It's not a toe that Marc Marquez is after, but he's just following the lines of Bagnaia and closing in on him. Look at the bottom of your screens. He's 7/10 up on Bagnaia at the same stage of the lap. He might almost get held up here in the final sector, up behind the 63, which of course he followed home to win the World Championship a week ago. You saw a little bit of a twitch there from Bagnaia's Ducati up ahead, but Marc is considerably quicker.
We're going to track then to the factory Ducatis over the line. First one should be incoming very, very shortly. Potentially, maybe, from Frankie Morbidelli. Bagnaia's wide there, isn't he, going through turn 10 as the waves crash onto the beaches in the background. Despite that mistake going into the right-hander, one of the two heavy braking zones in Mandalika is that 10th turn. Bagnaia is still up here. The two VR46 Ducatis are going really strong on this second lap in time attack mode. Both Morbidelli and the Gian Antonio looking for 129s.
Cost Bagnaia half second, that mistake into turn 10, and it's going to cost him a place in the top two at the moment. At the moment, the two VR46 Ducatis about to bump one of the factory Ducatis, Marc Marquez, out of the top two, because both Morbidelli and Digia on course to get themselves well into the 29s.
Yeah, this is going to be a 29 surely from Frankie. Out of the final corner he goes, right height device engaged, all close, very, very close, a 130.022 then from Morbidelli. The Gian Antonio does indeed break into the 129. Chief Christian Gavarini inside the box. Pecco, after that opening run, 7th.
And you could see from the hand signals that he was giving to his team there just how his Ducati was snapping away from him. Just clearly, once again, hasn't got the confidence to really throw it on the line on that GP25 or whatever we're going to call it at the moment for Pecco Bagnaia. Marc Marquez, who is firmly on a GP25 on course at the moment to get himself back into the top two, having been bumped out by the VR46 Giro moments ago.
Through 13, now 14, 4th gear, the right-hander. This is going to be close. It should be knocking Morbidelli. Yeah, Mark, this is surely going to be a top 2 lap. It's just a question of whether it's P1 or P2. It's P1, of course it is. P1 then for the world champ, a 129.687. He was lightning quick in that 4th sector there, was Mark. So he's taken 3 or 4 laps to get the tyres to really come in and work at their best. So evidence there by the fact that Marc Marquez is quite unusual, isn't it, to do a lap time. Your best time on 4 laps on a soft rear tyre. Normally you sort of got the best out of it by that point.
So Bagnaia will keep on pushing. 4.5 minutes to go. So assuming he doesn't back off and slow down on one of those laps, he could potentially still get another 4 laps out of this. He'll get 3 more before he comes across the checkered flag, and potentially 1 more after that. Bastianini pushing on, looking to try and rescue his weekend on the Tech 3 KTM. This unlikely to get him into the top 2, but could potentially get him in amongst Morbidelli and Binder, who are currently 3rd and 4th.
Zero fitting with the front end of that KTM, which he had right at the start of the season. That's a bit more likely, that's better, up to 5th place from Bastianini. another 300s, he would have got himself up into fourth ahead of the RC16 of Binder. This is getting better for Gian Antonio, potentially. Looking at the moment, though, at his teammate Frankie Morbidelli, who's also putting together a pretty strong lap here. If this is a clean final sector from Morbidelli, this might actually be briefly putting himself up inside that top two. Over the line, Frankie goes. Not quite. The Gian Antonio, though, has found more pace. He's improved to a 129.744. I'm on the deck. Into the first corner, he's gone down.
And Bagnaia is just coming through the final corner now. Bagnaia is just starting his final flying lap, and it might already be ruined by the time he even gets to turn one.
I think it will be. Yeah, those yellow flags are still being waved. So Pecco Bagnaia, well, he's taken the checkered flag as Bagnaia.
Didn't get round in time.
So Bagnaia's taken the checkered flag. So it was immaterial, the yellow flag for Bastianini. That's a Pecco Bagnaia. Well, 7 days ago in Motegi, he was on pole position and led every lap of the week, and his sprint Saturday has gone the opposite way here in Mandalika. Bagnaia at best will be 16th on the grid. That's going to be the third time then in the last 5 Grand Prix that Bagnaia has qualified 15th or lower. Relief then for Mark, who is going to be third, not even 500ths behind Mark. Miller was fourth. Binder 5th. We were just looking at a rider who was so utterly dominant last time out in Motegi. Digit and Mark, though, into Q2.
Both doing mid 129s. It took a 29.5 and a
Welcome back to Mandalika on the Grand Prix calendar. And another big test coming up for 12 riders in Q2. Marco Bezzecchi, who has reigned supreme. This was the first group then that left pit lane. It's 3 riders who know each other very, very well. Aldeguer, followed by Alex and Mark. All he can do is sit and watch. An unwanted but frustrated spectator is Pecco Bagnaia. He would dearly have loved to have been in this second session. But all that momentum, all that confidence gained in Japan last weekend immediately sucked out the sails of the former world champion.
Marc Marquez then safely through turn 5. It was that corner that in part explains why he was in Q1 in the first place. He crashed there in pretty dramatic fashion.
That Ducati underneath Marc Marquez this weekend has looked as nervous and as unsettled as we've seen at any point during this stellar season in Red 4D93. He has so often, though, hasn't he, throughout his career, tended to pull a rabbit out of the hat at key moments of a weekend. It looked like he was a little bit wide there, didn't he, going through into turn 16. There was a twitch there for Mark in the background. But not comfortable at all, has he, on that GP25. 129.888 from BK8 rider Fermin Aldeguer then is our benchmark lap time. Also straight away into the 129s goes Pedro Acosta. You have to say, pre-Q2, you thought anybody was going to maybe have a fight or take the fight to Bezzecchi, it was going to be Aldeguer or Acosta. Although, as we say that, as you can see at the bottom of your Grand Prix victory behind Jorge Martin, he's now been a second, 129.503. Alex has just punted his teammate Aldeguer off that front row. Good job by Alex for the 129.741. So it's Bezzecchi, Acosta, and now Alex up into P3.
Gian Antonio has already pitted at the end of his first run, which puts him 5th. He's still in the 130s and 29s, and that's a crash for Fabio Quartararo, who will not be improving on that 31.9 on that bike at least.
Yeah, that's a big old get-off for Fabio. That's in the final sector. That's down into turn 16. Bezzecchi clearly would have come through that yellow flag sector. I think this is going to be an illegal lap at the moment. Marini's just on a 129.697, but obviously he would have come through the yellow flags for this late crash at 15 for Quartararo. Whoa, no warning whatsoever there for Fabio. He was down before he'd even realised what was going on there. Oh, that went so quickly. Big slam on the right.
Top 7 at the moment have found 129s. You're going to have to be well into the low 29s if you want a place on the front row of the grid. Fermin Aldeguer, one of the riders, still back in the pits. Jack's got an update on the 54.
Yeah, something's gone wrong with the bike that he's done that first run on. You might be able to hear a Ducati in the background. That's Fermin Aldeguer exiting on his second machine. They put the brand new rear tyre into the one that he started the section with, and it just would not fire into life. So with time critical, they've just had to jump onto number 2.
Good spot, Jack. Maybe some damaged aero there on the left-hand side of that Aldeguer's GP24. What we do know after Jack's great spot as Rins goes in hot into turn 10 is Aldeguer's out on his spare machine.
He nearly ran into his teammate there, Rins into turn 10.
Now the mark through 11. This is just him trying to build up some temperature in those mixtures so far in Q2.
Ralph Fernandez has just set the fastest first sector on run 2, so we've got one Aprilia on pole position at the moment. It's another Aprilia launching the biggest threat to Bezzecchi.
He's just set a fastest second sector as well as the Spanish rider. This could be an Aprilia 1-2 here. Secchi versus Fernandez. Over the line will go Marc Marquez. Just over 4 minutes of this session remaining. Staring down the barrel of what would be his worst qualifying of the season by some stretch, Bezzecchi. Well, just look at this. Once again, he has creamed the field in that sector 2. That's where he is so good. Marine looking to keep himself on the front. Time that record, that's going to be obliterated. It's demolished. It's destroyed by Bezzecchi. It is the first ever 128 MotoGP lap of this Mandalika circuit by Aldeguer on the spare Gresini Ducati. Over he goes into second with 129.230. A showstopper though by Bez.
No one's beating that. Alex Marquez certainly isn't beating that. Has he gone down at the same corner he crashed at yesterday into turn 13? Alex Marquez, wherever he's gone down, is not going to be improving at the moment on 6th.
Yeah, he backed out of his last lap, did Mark. 12th place on the grid. Front washes out for Alex going through 13.
And he's miles off. He's only going to get on to the third row at best here is Marc Marquez. He's going to have one more lap after this. But this is a Marc Marquez nowhere near the level we've seen in 2025 so far. Many reasons for that. Not all down to Marc Marquez himself. He's going to be somewhere near Gian Antonio and Oliveira in 29.8, 9th and 10th. Here comes the 90 over the line. He doesn't even improve on 12th.
I don't think anybody really saw this coming. We know that
Best bet is Alex Rins.
Marc Marquez just cannot wait.
Oh, down goes Rins.
Rins. Exactly the same corner which caught out his teammate Fabio Quartararo. So Alex Rins fighting to get himself back on the front row. Fourth at the moment for Rins. Aldeguer's taking the checker flag. He's second. Acosta over the line. He's fifth.
Marc Marquez through in 9th place and would probably have been ahead of the Yamahas when they crashed, so that 9th place will be allowed to stand. The one rider, look at Marini, seen those yellow flags and said, well, I was on a lap, your session is over, and now everybody's session is over, and Aprilia can celebrate a pole position that looked on the card.
We said pre-session that other riders had labelled Marco Bezzecchi uncatchable, untouchable and almost unbeatable. Well, he has delivered. How on earth do you stop Marco Bezzecchi on the factory Aprilia here?
Download and watch it live on SPOTV Now app.